Everybody's here now. So I suppose with that, we can get started if everybody's ready. Okay, so welcome everybody to the third all candidates meeting hosted by CCLAP and Trinity Western Environmental Club. My name is Laura and I will be your host tonight. Before I go any further, I do want to acknowledge that though this webinar is online, this event does take place on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish people, including the Kwantlen, Stolo, and Tsawwassen First Nation, and that environmental issues, including the ones we will be speaking about tonight, are intrinsically linked with the rights of Indigenous people. Before I go any further as well, I would like to let my father, the president of CCLAP, Dr. Lionel Pandolfo, give a brief introduction. So one moment.
Okay. Well, greetings, everyone. Thank you, Laura, for your introduction. So I don't have to tell anybody my name. So what I would like to do here is just to introduce the fact that a few things are in order. We know that as far as elections are concerned, most political parties at these federal elections always make announcements and promises about short-term issues, understandably, such as housing affordability, childcare, firearms, etc. And these are very important to the majority of the electorate. However, what's more, or not more, but that's very important, and it's going to be more important in the future, is the longer term issues, like what we are going to be talking about tonight, how to deal with climate change. And that often fall lower on the priority list of political parties. However, this year, though, and certainly in future elections, climate change and how to deal with its disastrous impacts on society will come to the fore. And as a climate scientist, I started doing research in the field a few years after Dr. Jim Hansen, that's the former director of the NASA Goddard Institute of Space Studies, announced to the US Congress that global warming can now be, at the time, could now be detected and its effects measured. Now, I worked with Dr. Hansen in the early 90s when I was at the Goddard Institute for Space Studies as a postdoctoral researcher. And it became clear over the years that to scientists, the climate is warming and that the consequences of this warming are becoming more obvious over the years. For instance, this year, everybody remembers that this summer has been, it's very clear in our mind that this summer has been more warm than past summer, especially in the Pacific Northwest. We had suffered extreme heat waves and very hot weather. And so it has been, scientists do attribution studies, and the science of attribution has become more evolved. And for studies done this summer, has determined that the occurrence of these extreme heat would have had a low probability to occur if climate change was not happening. And because of that, because all this is clear to scientists, but most of societies and a lot of politicians are not well aware of that, many climate scientists, starting with Dr. Hansen, have moved into the social sphere, as I can say, to exhort citizens and politicians of the world, actually, to pay attention to global warming. The fact that warming of our planet creeps up, and that's one of the problems, creeps up on us, and its impact on society appear punctual in the sense that they are often attributed to the vagaries of weather and not the climate change. And these will have terrible consequences for society in the future, clearly. Therefore, it is extremely important for political parties to come up with a creative plan or creative plans to start mitigating climate, and not tomorrow, but today. We have to have credible plans that will bring us able to mitigate climate change, because by the end of this century, problems will be very bad. And probably all of us, maybe some of the younger ones will still be alive, but most of us won't be there. But our children, our future grandchildren, all these will have to suffer through that. And I think it's unfair to leave them a society, a planet that is in facing terrible disasters. And that's why the CCLAP, Climate Crisis Langley Action Partners, and the Trinity Western Environment Club have come together to organize these all candidates questions and answers sessions, so we can have an idea of what these various political parties have in mind for dealing with climate change. Thank you.
All righty. And secondly, I will have my two lovely panelists who are helping me ask the questions tonight introduce themselves and the Trinity Western Environmental Club. So Natalie, if you'd like to take it away.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm Natalie. I'm a fourth year environmental studies student here at Trinity. I'm also the president of TWEC this year, which is super exciting. I'm looking forward to our year. Just want to say like a little brief vision of TWEC. So the environmental club here is rooted in loving God, people, and the environment. And so we've been called to steward the earth. And so our hope this year for TWEC is to spread environmental awareness, create hope for the future, and be able to start a change here and now. Yeah.
Wonderful. And lastly, the stars of our show are going to now give a brief introduction of themselves and of their platform. And we'll start with the Liberal candidate, Kim Richter.
Just have to unmute myself. Hi, everyone. My name's Kim Richter, and I am a 35-year resident of the Township of Langley. I'm also a sitting township councillor and currently acting mayor. And I've been a councillor in the Township of Langley now for 22 years or 7 consecutive terms. So I really know this community inside out, and I'm proud of the work that I've been able to work with council on in terms of getting a tree protection bylaw. We're doing a canopy protection study right now. We did declare a climate emergency. We have adopted a climate action plan. And we're moving forward on it as we speak. Now, I'm running because I want to see a progressive MP voice in Ottawa for all our communities, Langley, Aldergrove, and Abbotsford. There are 5 reasons to vote Liberal in this next election. Number 1, we need to finish the fight against COVID. It's not done yet. Number 2, we need to ensure everyone has an affordable home and support first-time home buyers. Number 3, we need $10 a day childcare for our young families. Number 4, we need a commitment to increasing healthcare and providing 7,500 new doctors and nurses. And finally, we need an urgent plan to take on climate change. I am proud to be part of a party that has an A+ plan in this regard, and a plan that has been endorsed by Andrew Weaver, former BC Green Party leader. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Kim. And I will now pass it along to the Conservative Party candidate, Taco Van Popta.
Good, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. It's good to be here. I'm a longer-term resident of Langley. I've been here most of my life. I went to Langley Senior Secondary School, and I went to Trinity Western University before I went off to law school. So I'm very connected to this community, and I think I understand it. I've had the honor of serving the people of Langley as their member of parliament for the last 2 years. It's been truly an honor. I've worked very hard for this community to make sure that its voice is heard in the nation's capital. I've spoken to many, many people about their concerns and their issues and their priorities, including lots of people and organizations and businesses that are doing their part to combat climate change. I've spoken with developers who are putting up purpose-built rental buildings that are environmentally sustainable, and they're doing it on their own investment dollars. It is possible to do that and still make a profit. I've spoken with manufacturers in Gloucester Park who are manufacturing solar panels and running a booming business, exporting around the world. I've spoken to many farmers who are doing their part to keep Langley green. And I've had the honor of working with the Langley Environmental Partners Society. For the last couple of years, I've taken over the practice that my predecessor, Mark Warwa, had of giving away free seedlings every spring. And that's very, very popular. I've mentioned it in the House of Commons, and I've live streamed my speech, and it was very popular. You know, so people here in Langley are very, very engaged. Canada's Conservatives have a serious plan to combat climate change that allows us to meet our targets and reduce emissions by 2030. I'm very pleased that my leader, Aaron O'Toole, is taking this very seriously. His views align with mine. We all want to do our part to protect our environment, locally, nationally, and internationally. We are stewards of the planet, and we need to do a better job. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Kaya Farstad of the Green Party.
Hi. Yep, I am Kaya Farstad. I know it's difficult for some people with the J in there. It is Norwegian. Just think of kayaking. Helps you remember how to say it. It's a nickname, a common nickname for Catherine, actually. So that is where the name comes from. Our leader, Annemie Paul, I just want to give you a little background on her. She's really campaigning in her riding. It's very important for her to win her riding in this election. So she has not been going around the country. And a little bit about her, she is a lawyer. She has a master's in public affairs. She worked for Canada as an international advisor at the ICC in The Hague and was the European Union Director for Crisis Action. We have always taken the climate crisis seriously. That's the whole reason that the Green Party exists. And these aren't new warnings, and governments have found it convenient to ignore the long-term consequences of their actions. They've also found it easy to ignore them because we don't have continuity of government in Canada, which makes it almost impossible to commit to long-term plans. And that's why a core of the Green Party's platform is to make sure that committees for things like climate crisis are non-partisan, that members from all parties are included, that we want to change from first past the post to proportional representation so there can be continuity in our government. Thank you.
Thank you. So now on to the fun. We will begin the questions, starting off with Natalie and question number 1.
Okay. So Canada's youth policy states that youth recognize that they will be the generation to deal with consequences of climate change, and that they want to see further immediate action to protect the environment so that they and for future generations of Canadians can inherit a healthy world. What guarantee can you and your party provide to young people that they will inherit a healthy environment?
And we'll go down the same pattern as we did for introductions, starting with Kim Richter.
Well, the Liberal Party takes climate change very seriously. It's in the top 5 issues of our party, unlike the other party, the Conservative Party, where it's not even on their brochure. Part of our platform is to create a cleaner and greener future by creating jobs and becoming a leader in the production of batteries to power the clean economy, help industries adopt clean technologies to cut pollution, and require all oil and gas sector emissions to decline. We will reach a 100% net zero electricity grid by 2035 through a clean electricity standard. We will build 50,000 new chargers for zero emissions vehicles across Canada and provide rebates up to $5,000 on the purchase of an electric vehicle for at least 500,000 Canadians, and require that at least half of all new passenger vehicles sold in Canada by 2030 and at 100% by 2035 be electrical. We will do more to help Canadians adapt to climate change, and we will end plastic pollution by 2030. We will protect more of Canada's nature by creating both national parks as well as conservation areas on the oceans. And we're spending $1 billion to protect our lakes within Canada, our lakes and streams. So that's where the Liberals are heading. And I think we have to head there, and I fully intend to support all of these if I get to Ottawa. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Taco Van Popta.
Good, thank you. So just before I get into my comments, just a couple of questions. I got in late, so I wasn't there. I didn't have the opportunity of the huddle beforehand, so I'm not sure what the rules are. Like, do we get 1 minute to an answer, or 2 minutes, or are there no time limits?
It's 2 minutes per answer.
Okay, good. And then secondly, how long is this going to go? I have another Zoom call at 8:30, so like an hour from now. Is that going to work?
We expected it to go till about 9 o'clock, but if you have other responsibilities, you can.
Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, so we got started a little late too. So yeah, sorry about that. But anyways, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for hosting it. So one of the first things that Mr. O'Toole did when he became the leader of the Conservative Party was to roll out his Secure the Environment plan. It's a very thorough plan. I've got it right here. It's on our website, easy to find, I'm sure. And it's a pretty thorough document. Highlighting many things. And we had it independently reviewed by Navius Research, which is a environmental economic modeling company that is used by many governments, most of the provincial governments around across this country. We wanted to go with a credible organization that would have a true and fair assessment of our plan. And they say that it will achieve our Canada's 2030 goals to meet our Paris Agreement commitments. And they say it is as good as what is currently in place, but we get there in quite a different way. Instead of having a carbon tax, we do have a price on carbon, but we're calling it a low carbon savings account, where money doesn't go to the government, but it goes to individuals into savings account that to individuals and companies into a savings account that they can then allocate towards like green technology purchases. I discussed this with the BC Truckers Association. They are big polluters, big consumers of carbon energy, and they tell me that it's a great plan. They expect that their members will buy into it and see the usefulness of it. Taking their savings and putting it into green technology, greener, lower fuel standard trucks, for example.
Thank you. Next, Kaya from the Green Party.
Thank you. We've had a long time to think about this and plan for it and have it costed and have it approved by a consensus of both economists and scientists. And our plan involves canceling all new pipeline projects, starting with the Trans Mountain, canceling all new oil exploration projects, including offshore, and the leasing of federal lands for fossil fuel production and retire the existing licenses. Ban hydraulic fracturing, which we know of as fracking, but which is occasionally tried to be sold to us as LNG, as clean energy. And especially those of us who live in an earthquake zone really don't want to do anything that's going to increase the frequency of earthquakes. And aside from that, it also poisons the groundwater, and no one knows how to clean that. And all subsidies to the fossil fuel sector. These are the richest companies in the world. They do not need our tax money. Phase out existing oil and gas operations so they continue on a declining basis. Require federal public investment funds, including the Canada Pension Plan, to divest from fossil fuels. And ensure that companies are held accountable for paying the cost of cleaning up all of the mess and waste and toxins that they have left while extracting our resources. Because right now it's taxpayers who pay for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question 2, Ria, go ahead.
Hi, so I'm also a panelist. I'm a second year pre-med student here at Trinity. I'm a biology major with a psych minor, and I'm just going to go into the second question. So this question is about air quality. This summer, heat waves and wildfires have created toxic air across BC and the rest of Canada. I find it hard to walk to school, exercise, and socialize with my friends at school or in the community. I feel nervous spending time outside, and I worry about the future air quality for my children and their friends. I've also heard firsthand that many of my classmates share the same concerns. While I understand that wildfires are unpredictable, I am curious to know what steps you would take or support to mitigate the contributing factors responsible for toxic air.
Thank you. And Kim Richter, start us off.
Actually, it would be nice if we varied the order so I don't always go first. Can we do that next time?
For sure.
Okay, great, thanks. In terms of air quality, I think we've had, 5 or 6 ozone warnings this summer from Metro Vancouver. Metro Vancouver monitors air quality in our region and does a very good job of that. I know because I sit on the Metro Vancouver Regional Board, and they are moving now to put measures in place such as reducing the amount of particulate that goes into the atmosphere through things like oil and gas small engines, as well as through burning. And they're trying now to encourage farmers to move towards tree chippers instead of when they clear cut large swaths, which they're allowed to do in order to plant crops. Not that I agree with that, but they do have the right to plant crops. That they don't burn it anymore. They chip it instead and recycle the chipping that comes out of that. So those are some of the measures that are taking place at the local level and the regional level. And when we look at air quality on a national level, it would seem to me that it's going to have to be some sort of monies and jobs created in technologies that will allow us to keep the air cleaner for more people. One of the things that I found most frightening this summer myself was the heat dome that we had at the beginning of June. This, as I understand it, is normally a once in 1,000-year event. Now we can expect it to start happening once every 5 to 10 years. When this happens, it requires air purification systems within homes in order to keep safe rooms for individuals to be able to breathe cleaner air. So we need to combine cleaning up the environment with creating new jobs and new technologies to allow that to occur. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Taco Van Popta.
Good, thank you. I've lived here for many years, and as a kid, I never remember ever the Fraser Valley getting covered with forest fire smoke, so that I couldn't be outside. I'm a cyclist. I love going for long bike rides, and I didn't do that for a good part of the summer because of all the forest fire smoke. So yeah, that's, it's a problem, right? And it needs addressing. But there's no one single simple solution. This is all very, very complex science, and we need to develop policy around that science. And we need to move there on many different fronts. Our plan talks about introducing zero emission vehicle mandate, requiring 30% of light duty vehicles to be sold to be zero emissions, and that's by 2030. So it's fairly aggressive. But that's just one example of what needs to be done. We think that carbon pricing will, the market will sort itself out in many ways around that, particularly our plan, where the money doesn't go into general revenue for the government, but it stays with individuals. So they will have a measure of how much carbon they're consuming or producing. And they will then be able to make responsible choices to see what works best for them, to do their part to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Just a couple of ideas there.
Thank you. And Kaya Farstad.
Thank you. The smoke is from wildfires, and the wildfires themselves are things that we can see. And they are a small fraction of the horrific damage that is occurring on the planet. And I am sorry to say that Canada is one of the top 3 offenders in the G20 in pollution and GHG emissions per capita. I don't even know where to start with this, because I have the whole green platform is based on addressing the climate crisis. Everything is attached to it: housing, transportation, health, everything. One of the things that's really important is building a global climate supercomputer. So some of the, you know how we always say, well, they said this would happen, it wasn't going to rain, but now it's raining. Okay, so scientists are trying to predict, just like meteorologists are trying to predict. And their computers aren't powerful enough to get the accurate predictions that we really need. And a supercomputer is not something that Canada can do on its own, but it is something that Canada could lead other countries in coming together to build one as a shared resource. It is something that we can contribute to. Supporting Indigenous-led, protected, and conservation areas. Funding stewardship of the lands and waters by Indigenous guardians. Implementing our international commitments under the Convention on Biological Diversity and the follow-up protocols. Protecting a minimum of 30% of the freshwaters and lands in each Canadian ecosystem by 2030 is in our platform, and 50% by 2050. Halt habitat destruction by 2030 and restore the most negatively affected ecosystems, such as wetlands, by 2050, prioritizing carbon-rich ecosystems. There's more, but I'll try to get to it later because I only have a few seconds. Thanks.
Thank you. So our third question will be read by myself, and it concerns the protection of old growth. Only 2.7% of British Columbia's once vast old growth forests, which have irreplaceable ecological and cultural value, are left. As global carbon sinks, they play a major role in our work to mitigate the effects of climate change and are unique biodiversity hotspots. What will you and your party do to seriously protect these ancient forests and subsequently all the lives that depend on them, human and non-human? And to reverse the pattern, we'll start with Kaya Farstad.
Okay, all of the technology that we need exists and is a lot easier to do than forestry. We can use hemp, we can use bamboo. Those things grow much faster. They have a way smaller carbon footprint than cutting down forests. And there's absolutely nothing that we need to cut down old growth forests for. We're using paper for the paper bag you get at McDonald's when you drive through and get your food. We're using it for toilet paper. We don't need to use our forests for anything like that. It's absurd, our reliance on forestry, and it is outdated. We do, of course, also want to develop and implement a national forest strategy, creating fire breaks and fire suppression, providing physical resources to deal with the fires quickly and effectively, and including subsidies to owners of rural properties so that they can better manage the health of the forests that are on their property. There's absolutely no way that I would be able to endorse or allow continued logging of old growth forests under any circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Taco Van Popta.
Good. Well, thank you. And Kai, that was pretty interesting. So thank you for that. I didn't know hemp could be a replacement. So I'm interested to learn more about that. Yeah, like we have mass timber technology nowadays where we can use, smaller pieces and second grade wood and assemble it together, and it's very, very strong. So, it's much better use of the, the parts of the forest that we should be harvesting. So, ideologically, I would absolutely support that. Forest management is very much a provincial matter, and I don't want to just be brushing it off. I know Kaya talked about a national standard, and maybe there's room for that. But I would defer to provincial governments. The federal government's got, we have our own jurisdictional areas, and we need to concentrate on that. And of course, we do work together with provinces to see whatever we can do to help these sorts of matters. But I would just say generally, here's one thing that I think that should happen, and that is, the agricultural land, reserve lands need to be respected. I don't like to see urban sprawl. I like to see densification of cities. I don't like to see forests being taken down in close proximity to cities that could be densified instead. I talk a lot about SkyTrain and efficient public transportation. That's where I think the future lies. More people living denser, closer to work, and just consuming less energy and less lumber.
Next, Kim Richter.
Yes, of course, we're going to protect old growth forests, but I think the bigger question is protecting forests, period. The more we lose canopy, and we are losing canopy at a tremendously fast pace here in the Lower Mainland in particular, the more we are damaging our environment here, the more we are placing the populations here at risk from extreme weather events. The Liberals are also committing to plant 2 billion trees in the future. But what we really need to do is we need to increase tree canopy. And again, this is coming from Metro Vancouver, but it would be very nice if there was support from Metro Vancouver, from the federal government, in order to achieve these things. They want to take tree canopy up from its current 21% in Vancouver and area overall to 40% by 2040. Not only that, but they also want to start protecting more lands. And again, I mentioned in my opening remarks how the federal government has committed to protecting or creating 10 new national parks. Those 10 new national parks equal 3 times the size of Nova Scotia, and they will be containing old growth trees, so they will be protected. But we've also got to start financing regional parks through federal funding in order to protect those forests around us as well. We know from the COVID outbreak how very important parks are to people. And visits in Metro Vancouver parks in the first year of COVID went up to 16 million visitors. That's up from 11 million. So we need more parks. And if we keep those parks, we keep the ecosystems, we keep the trees. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will pass it back to Natalie for question number 4.
Okay. It has been over a decade since Canada first committed to ending fossil fuel subsidies. Yet in 2020, the Government of Canada announced at least $18 billion in subsidies and public financing for the oil and gas sector. Will you and your party commit to ending all subsidies, public finance, and other fiscal supports for fossil fuels by 2022?
Thank you. And we'll start with Taco Van Popta this time.
Good, thank you. So the oil and gas industry is important. It drives a lot of economic growth. So there's demand around the world. So I think that we need to work with other countries. We need to work with the United States in determining how we're going to manage this scarce resource and how we're going to develop alternative, cleaner energies. But it's not going to happen overnight. I find it interesting that the Liberals are saying that they're going to clean up the environment, but yet they bought a pipeline. So I wonder how that works. And if that's the kind of subsidy that you're talking about, I mean, presumably they will sell it on the open market again at some point. But I would just underline this, that there's thousands of families that make their living in oil and gas, and it's getting better all the time. We have carbon sequestration, carbon carbon capture and utilization and storage. There's many, many technologies. I would just reiterate what I said a few minutes ago. There is no one single solution. It has to be multifaceted.
Thank you. Kaya Farstad.
This is random now. It's very exciting. Okay, like the order. All right. Yes, not only does the Green Party pledge to end all subsidies to the fossil fuel sector, we also have a plan that supports a just transition for workers to transfer high-paying energy sector jobs from dirty energy to clean energy. And if you follow any of the European countries who are very far ahead of us, we rely on a terribly simple economic model for the most part, which is pay companies to come in and take our resources so that Canadians can have jobs, and then buy back the resources that are now in a finished product, and then pay to clean up after those companies. And we've been able to get away with it because we have a ton of resources and hardly any people. You know, people to space, land. We've been able to get away with that. And we can't keep relying on that. I just want to say insane. It is insane to assume that we can keep doing what we've always been doing and think that somehow something's going to happen to save us. We need to save ourselves. We need to mobilize like we did in the world wars to address the climate crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, Kim Richter.
Okay. Yes, I agree. We have to get off the fossil fuel diet. And I didn't understand and I didn't support the federal government buying a pipeline. But then again, the federal government has to make decisions on behalf of all Canadians. And there are at least 2 provinces and possibly 3 if we include Quebec that rely on oil and gas jobs. What we are going to have to do is change the way we do things going forward. And that is the focus of part of our plan now onto technologies, developing new technologies and new jobs around those technologies to replace the reliance on oil and gas. I would suspect that a great number of these new technologies are going to have to be developed first in Alberta in order to get Alberta off the fossil fuel diet. And I note as well that the oil and gas sector emissions are going to be reduced from current levels at a pace and scale needed to achieve net zero by 2050, with 5-year targets starting in 2025. During the Leaders Summit on Climate in April 2020, Prime Minister Trudeau announced that Canada will enhance our emissions reduction target to 40 to 45% below 2005 levels by 2030. So we are moving forward. We are making progress. We don't have much choice yet. We have to get on with it, and the Liberals are committed to doing so. Thank you.
Thank you. And for our last question, I pass it back to Ria.
All right. So if elected to represent Langley Aldergrove constituents, what do you believe as the most important local climate emergency issues to be taken forward to the federal government?
And this time we will start with Kaya Farstad.
Okay. That's a good question. And I'm not sure that there can be a good answer that picks an issue. Because our ecosystems and our environments and our health, both our physical and our mental health, are so interconnected that to choose one issue to tackle really means choosing to tackle a whole bunch of the web of things that are connected to that one issue. For example, salmon. There are so many things connected to that, from open net farming to pollution in the oceans and creeks. It's just, there's not one issue. We really need to address the very foundation of how we approach the way that we live. And one of the things that we need to do is to start incorporating Indigenous practices and to start consulting Indigenous communities on a nation-to-nation basis. And the changes that we need can only be implemented if we're all working together. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll pass it to Kim Richter.
Okay, good question. I actually think there are three priorities for the Lower Mainland and our community, which is included in the Lower Mainland, to be looking at. Number one, we have to reduce GHGs that are coming from buildings as well as transportation. One of the things that Township Council has started moving forward with, and I'm so glad to see this, and Mr. Teiko Van Popta referred to this earlier, the number of new buildings that we're beginning to require to be solar panel ready. There's no doubt in my mind that the technologies are being developed now at a pace, particularly in solar energy, that will reduce the costs for buildings, and the business case will make itself within, I think, 3 to 4 years. The second thing we have to do is we have to protect our coastal waters. Our First Nations rely on the fisheries from those waters. There are so many species that are impacted by the condition of those waters. So I'm very pleased, for example, that the federal government is requiring tertiary level sewage treatment before treated water can be put into the oceans, particularly around our Lower Mainland. And the third thing, which is a critical thing for me, is protecting tree canopy. They are carbon sinks. And we had an application come before council just at our last meeting where they wanted to cut down 4,083 trees to build 29 homes. Does that make sense to you guys? Because it sure doesn't make sense to me. That's ridiculous. We should be building around trees, not mowing them down in order to create housing. And make no mistake, those 29 houses that would be built are not going to be anywhere near affordable for young people. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, Taco Van Popta.
Good, thank you. Yeah, great question, good conversation too. So thank you for that. I think the one really critical thing to keep in mind about Canada, we're a very unique nation. We're only 38 million people, but we have a huge piece of real estate, going from St. John's, Newfoundland to Victoria. And it's a northern climate and it's cold. So we need to move around and we need to keep warm. So we're going to be bigger consumers than, let's say a smaller European country that's densely packed together. Now that said, there are solutions. Most of us live in fairly densely packed urban areas. And that's a trend that's been going on probably throughout Canada's history. And it's a trend that is really accelerating now. I think that's a big part of the solution. Get more people living in urban areas. And more people doing exactly what we're doing right now. Instead of having all gotten in our cars and drive somewhere, we're on a Zoom call. And that can be done right across the country. So I'm optimistic that people's footprints are just generally going to become smaller. Lowering consumption has to be a big part of tackling climate change. We can talk about technologies and science and shutting down pipelines and all that sort of stuff. But the real solution, I think, is each one of us individually making responsible choices about how we're going to consume less. I could go on, but you're asking for the one thing. That is the one thing that I think that we can do and that we should be doing and that we are doing already. We just need to keep moving and accelerate that trend.
Right, thank you. So that concludes the first part of the webinar, which were the preset questions. We'll now have a brief about 5-minute intermission where everyone has a chance to get some water if they need, go to the washroom, and then we will go with the pre-selected audience questions. Alrighty, if everyone's ready, I will ask the first of the 3 pre-selected audience submitted questions. This one concerns the Trans Mountain Pipeline. What are you or will you be doing with the Trans Mountain Pipeline soon to be installed in Yorkson Creek, among elsewhere? And we will start with Taco Van Popta.
Good, thank you. So Trans Mountain Pipeline has a 50-year history, and we're twinning it. The Lower Mainland relies very heavily on the one single pipeline. It's how we drive our cars. It's how we fuel our airplanes. We can't do without it. Vancouver could not function as a modern city without it. And the city has grown, and we need to meet the demand. And I would just go back to what I had said earlier. You can't shut down the oil and gas. We can all do our own piece to make responsible decisions to lower our individual footprints, reduce demand in that way. But realistically, we cannot just shut down our pipelines. We need them. We're relying on them. And I would reiterate, it has a good safety record of 50 years plus.
Thank you. Kim Richter, please.
Okay, well, I want to correct a statement that was just made, and that is that the oil, the heavy use bitumen oil that's going to be flowing through this pipeline that's being twinned is not used to power the Lower Mainland. And it presents a considerable threat, in my opinion, to the coastal waters that we have, the lands that we have, should that pipe break. I did not support the Trans Mountain Pipeline. In fact, I even made a submission to the National Energy Board on behalf of the residents in my community saying, don't do it. It's not right that we're putting this heavy oil through our community with the potential for contamination, future contamination of our community. But I've been in politics long enough to know that the way politics works is you get a chance to voice your opinion, but it's a group that makes a decision by taking a vote, and the majority in that group will win. If you've got a majority vote on council, you need 5 out of 9 votes to make a decision that binds the corporation. Once that decision is done, it binds the corporation, and we just have to move on. So my position on the pipeline is, I had my fair chance to speak out. I did. My voice wasn't listened to. A decision was made. Now let's get on to the future. Let's get on to getting off the oil and gas diet that we're on by developing new technologies, new energy sources, and putting those jobs to work to get us where we need to go so we can phase this industry out. It does need to be phased out at some point, in my opinion. So that's my position. If another pipeline purchase comes up, I will not vote for it. I don't think it is in keeping with the direction that we have to take.
Kim, you've been muted after the 2-minute point.
Oh, okay.
Keep the schedule going, sorry. But there will be a chance for closing remarks from each candidate where you can finish your remarks. Kaya, please.
I've already said that we plan to stop the pipeline project. Water is going to become a commodity. Water may be a commodity that we need to use the pipeline for in the places that it's already in. We're poisoning a lot of the water that we have. Again, Canada is a resource-rich country, and we are wasting our resources at an exponential rate. So that would be our plan for the pipeline. I don't think that I value life more than I value comfort, and I don't believe in anthropocentrism. So I don't think that our comfort or our profits from a short-term destructive industry are worth endangering the lives of all of our marine animals, a lot of our land animals, and entire ecosystems if there's a spill. I know we're proud to say we have a world-class cleanup response. A world-class cleanup response is a maximum cleanup of 30% of the spill. So there's not a question in my mind about what we need to do, whether we want to do it, whether it's comfortable, we still need to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Natalie with question number 2.
What, if any, incentives or encouragements and action plans can you do to switch us on the commercial, industrial, and residential levels to alternate energy within the next 3 to 4 years?
And we will start with Kim Richter.
Well, I think the one thing that the example I already used, which I'll go back to, is for us as a local council requiring these high-rise buildings that we're now generating to become solar panel ready so that they can start operating off clean energy, electricity on their own within 3 to 5 years. There is no doubt in my mind, I said it before, I'll say it again, the technologies are evolving at such a pace now that the business case is going to be there for these new buildings to go to electrical energy and generate their own. So that's the big step that I'd encourage. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Taco Van Popta.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I lost track of it. I lost track of what your question was.
Natalie, if you would go ahead and repeat the question.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, let me find it. Yeah. What, if any, incentives or encouragements and action plans will you do to switch us on a commercial, industrial, and residential level to alternate energy within the next 4 to 5 or 3 to 4 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, fair enough. So it's a good question. You know, investment funds are changing attitudes, and that's a good thing. They're becoming more green, more environmental, more stewardship minded, and they're looking for greener industry to invest in. So it's already happening, right? The worldview is changing. I'm just going to go back to the example I used of, and I don't have permission to identify them, but a developer, a builder of rental apartment buildings, putting up sustainable buildings, and the business model works. He didn't need any incentive. He didn't need the government to tell him what to do. The model is already working. I used to, before I was elected, I did a lot of land development work as a lawyer. And I know that some apartment buildings in like Burnaby and Vancouver don't, you know, they had too many car parks spots, right? Because fewer people driving cars. So that's what happens when you start densifying. I think the industry is already moving in that direction. I think it's important for governments to recognize that and maybe push against an open door, push in the right direction, just to encourage and to accelerate that development.
Thank you. And Kaya Farstad.
If you have the platform, I'm going to encourage you to look at pages 8 and 9. But I'm going to give you an example from my personal life, because what we want to do is move all of those fossil fuel subsidies, which are billions of dollars, into green energy, which will make it affordable, which will make it practical, which will make it widespread, which would enable us to be selling energy to other countries without using our dirty resources. And I'm a teacher, which means I'm not rich. I have 2 kids. One is autistic. One did hockey all the way through to the junior level. And I always wanted them to be able to do everything that they wanted to do within reason. And that was very expensive. We live in a 1-bedroom basement suite. And I have relatives, close relatives, even that are millionaires, multimillionaires. And my carbon footprint living in a 1-bedroom basement suite rental is bigger than their carbon footprint because they can afford to power their home with solar energy. They can afford to build passive houses, which means that they don't have any heating or cooling systems at all, and nor do they need them. So it's not an individual responsibility. We don't need to ask individuals to make better choices. We need to ask governments and corporations to make better choices. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last audience question, I'll pass it to Ria.
All right. Are you aware of what biggest climate issues our constituency is most responsible for contributing to or able to address? If not, why not?
And we'll start with Taco and Papa.
So if I understand the question, what is the biggest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions? Would that be a good summary of the question?
Just general climate or environmental issues that our constituency is responsible or contributing to.
It was said earlier, automotive emissions is very big, and home heating is also very big. Happily, these are two areas where we can actually do something constructive, where we are already doing something very constructive. We're building better buildings. We're certainly building better buildings environmentally than we were 20 or 30 years ago. Cars are becoming more energy efficient, and we're moving. And I'm going to agree with Kaya on this, that not everything is an individual choice, right? Because opportunities have to be there as well. And the government sometimes needs to step in to do the big jobs, right? To sort of say push in the right direction, right? Push against an open door. Worldviews are changing. Government sometimes just needs to step up and finance big development, big new ideas. Right through subsidies, perhaps. But as a conservative, I was a little worried of subsidies, right? Because that means the government needs to pick which are the winners and which are the losers. But also through regulation, to encourage more development in this area, more development in zero emission vehicles, more development in solar panels. I'm really happy to see companies in Alberta, oil country, that are building wind farms and solar farms. So these are the sorts of things I think that that can be done and that are being done already.
Kim Richter, please.
Okay, well, as I said in my previous comments, it's buildings and transportation. And the Liberals are pushing to change this by building 50,000 more zero emission vehicle charges, requiring at least half of all passenger vehicles sold in Canada to be zero emission by 2030 and all to be zero emission by 2035. We are also charting a path toward net zero buildings across the country, which will also help Canadians save money on their energy costs and will make housing a little more affordable for them, because right now the big drivers in terms of cost of living are, of course, cost of housing and cost of energy and cost of food. So those are that's my position, and it's reflective of the Liberals' position. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Kaya Farstad.
The big ones are agriculture, construction, transportation, and the energy sector, of course. But I'm going to pick Highway 1. There's a lot of talk about expanding Highway 1. And there's also some talk by a small group of people who would like to revive a railroad that exists from Hope to Scott Road, to which the passenger rights are already owned by the government and would not have to be paid for, by using green technologies for the trains so that they are not contributing GHGs. And it would not only encourage community development around the stations and allow people more options for commuting to the SkyTrains, but it would also require taking far less land out of the agricultural land reserve than expanding Highway 1 would. So there are lots of decisions that we can make, and we experience a lot of that traffic from Chilliwack to Vancouver every day. We experience a lot of it. And I don't think expanding Highway 1 is the right answer. Thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes our webinar, or actually concludes the question section of the webinar. Now we move on to the closing statements by each of the candidates, and we will start with Kim Richter.
Well, I want to start by congratulating you guys for putting this on. And those were terrific questions. One of the other hats that I wear is I'm also an educator at Kwantlen Polytechnic University, where I've taught business there for 28 years now. And if you guys were in my class, you'd be getting an A+ for this. So well done. I think what I want to say just in closing is that the Liberals have a world-class plan to take immediate action on climate change. So if you want a plan like this that has been endorsed by environmentalists, that recognizes that climate change is real, that it's going to put an effective price on pollution, is it has ambitious 2030 climate targets, is banning single harmful plastic use items, that will make net zero by 2050 the law, that will have $5,000 homeowner grants for changing over the way they heat their houses, and $5,000 zero emissions vehicle incentives, then please vote Liberal, because we can make it happen. And if we have a voice at that table in Ottawa, then we can make it happen here in Langley Aldergrove. So thank you again, wonderful job. And I've really enjoyed being here. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next, Taco Van Popta.
Okay, good. Thank you. I too enjoyed this session with you. I'm very pleased that Trinity Western University, my alma mater of many years ago, has a group that is so engaged. So congratulations on that. The Conservative Party is focused on recovering what we lost in the pandemic and relaunching our economy. That didn't really come up a lot in today's discussion, but it is front and center for many Canadians. We have a cost of living crisis. We have inflation coming in, the highest inflation in 20 years. We have a housing affordability crisis. And we know that we need to create more jobs, more better paying jobs. And the way to do that is by increasing productivity. And Canada lags, unfortunately, behind other industrialized countries in our productivity metrics. And that's just not acceptable. So in our platform, there's a big focus on growing our innovative industries. And part of that, of course, is environmental. And that's why I'm so pleased to be part of this this discussion and to get your really good questions. They got me thinking about something. So thank you very much for that. I believe that there's a lot of growth there for our economy as we shift away from more traditional industries to newer industries with a heavy focus on intellectual property. That's, I think, where we're going. And the environmental story is a big part of that. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you very much. And lastly, Kaya Farstad.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been wonderfully organized. We all have tech problems. I don't even want to, like, that's just, it just happens. It's a fact of life and we're all used to them. And it has been great, really well organized, really good questions, excellent timing. I appreciate everybody who's here listening. And I want to thank Takeo and Kim because I've learned things from them in this session. I think it's great when we get together and talk. All the information about human-caused climate change, it started to pop up well over 100 years ago. It was widespread 50 years ago. And emissions right now are 21% above 1990 levels in Canada. Canada has never achieved a climate target. Canada has an emissions reduction target that is well below our global peers. GHGs have risen in Canada every year since 2016. And what it means that we're one of the worst polluters per capita, it means that if you take it down to a per person basis, we pollute and have more GHG emitters than at least 17 of the other G20 countries. Voting for the Conservatives and Liberals is a vote that says it's okay to keep sidelining the environment. And nobody expects the Greens to have a majority or a minority government. But we don't want majority and minority governments to continue anyway. We want governments to be collaborative. Taco's doing a ton of work. Michael's doing a ton of work. I haven't met Raina, but I'm sure she's working hard. Kim has been working hard for years. We all have things that we can contribute to the government to help make sure that everyone is represented and to help make sure the plans we make are the best for a variety of groups, not just one group. Thank you.
And thank you. So that concludes our webinar, and I want to give a big thank you to all our candidates, our panelists, our behind the scenes help, and everybody who took time out to attend tonight. It has been lovely. I want to remind everyone that we will be having another meeting like this for the Langley City Cloverdale riding on September 17th, so next Friday, and information will go out accordingly. And once again, just a big thank you for everybody being here, and a reminder to stay informed and to get out there and help the environment however you can individually. So thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks.